Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome George Mumford, renowned mindfulness coach and author of Unlocked, as well as The Mindful Athlete, the man who helped Phil Jackson win 6 championships and had a huge influence on the likes of Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant. What an incredible life you've had, sir.
You mean incredible life I'm having? Not done.
Exactly.
Not done
Exactly.
yet. Yeah.
100%. For
And
you,
exciting.
what does mindfulness mean in terms of elite sport?
Mindfulness is really this ability to embrace the moment as it is, and it's just be here now. That's pretty much what it is. It's like it's a word that I can describe it, but you won't get it. It's something you have to experience. The closest you can get to it is you have a mirror in front of you, and whatever's in that mirror, whatever that mirror reflects, that's what it's about. Just seeing things as they are. Just it's letting, but it's a fascinating prospect because a lot of times when we observe phenomena, we don't just see the phenomena. We have on some kind of filter, or belief system, or lens that actually is not letting the thing speak to us. We're interpreting what it is, and most of the time, it's the history of the past. It's a inclination of our mind getting involved with embellishments, or instead of just letting the raw data speak to us in its own language, we have a very short moment of time where there's just pure awareness, and then the abstract thinking, associative thinking, the embellishing or destroy whatever we do, we don't see things as they are. We see things as we think they are, or as we believe they are, rather than letting the thing tell us what it is.
Do you think Phil Jackson was ahead of his time in
Yes,
terms of embracing this?
yes, yes, absolutely. And people get the wrong idea. And even though they talk about mindfulness, mindfulness is just one aspect. Mindfulness by itself is not enough. And I talk about this in my book, The Mindful Athlete: Secrets to Pure Performance. It's a superpower. It's supported by insight or wisdom, and you can think of wisdom as information, intellect, intuition, or direct experience. Supported by wisdom, because if you're going to be mindful, the wisdom is telling you what are you being mindful of, right? And then once you're being mindful and you're observing, then you have to have an understanding of what you're looking at, and what is it telling you. So you have the information, then you also have faith or trust, because if you have too much information, like some of us, we become cynical, and some of us have too much trust without verification, and we become Pollyannaish. So mindfulness has these other qualities, like wisdom or insight, and faith, trust, and then we also have effort. You make effort, but you can have this effort. Effort is kind of like a guitar, right? Effort is like a guitar string. If it's too loose or too tight, it's not going to work. You got to have that balance where you're doing something, but you're not trying too hard, and you're not trying hard enough. That makes sense. And so there's all of these things that come here to help the mindfulness really see what's there, and then in seeing it, being able to create space, and in that space having the freedom and power to choose based on who you say you are and based on where you say you're going.
Trust is an interesting one. How do you build trust with someone like Michael Jordan? What was it like the first time you met him?
First time I met Michael, actually he was around, but he wasn't with the team anymore. He was in the locker room. Well, what I felt, this presence, I felt he's vibrating at a different level. I mean, put it that way. So you could you could see there was actually I ended up uh, calling my company, my LLC, the Eye of the Hurricane. And so and I watching him play before I met him, and I realized that here's somebody who, when things got more intense, he got more calm. It was amazing just seeing him, and then obviously at some point starting to work with him and do things, but it was he was very interesting. Very interesting.
How do you build rapport with a character that strong and a presence like that?
Yes. Well, that's very interesting because it depends on. I had a lot of street cred. I was really lucky. I had a lot of street cred because Phil brought me in and they trust Phil, but also I room with Dr. J in college, so I've been around the game and I have street cred. So that's part of it. But the main thing is how you relate to them. So being authentic, being myself, and being interested in helping people, being of service. So you develop rapport by how you relate to the person. So to me, it's really important that when you relate to somebody, you relate to them as a whole person, realizing they have a body, mind, heart, and soul, a spirit. So it's not like shut up and dribble or I like you dribble. It's more about seeing them or the essence. I would say uh, one way I develop trust is when I'm looking at you, I'm not really looking at a personality. I'm looking at a divine spark. I'm looking at Buddha consciousness, Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it. There's a spirit. There's something there that relate to people that way. And when you relate to people with an open heart, open mind, with a genuine concern, or I would say in the therapy realms, you talk about unconditional total regard. So you're looking at the person as a whole person, and you're not looking at them as a thing. And so there's a variation of ways, but one way you can develop a trust is to be trustworthy. And so that means that how you speak, how you relate to them, what energy you are carrying. So people have a pretty good BS meter. They can tell when you're not being real or you have a gaining idea. So it depends, but a lot of it has to do with it has nothing to do with them on some level in your relationship. It has to do with the field that you created within yourself. So what the heck does that mean? That means, E equals MC squared. We are energy. Okay. So if I'm bringing a certain energy, even though we may not understand it, you feel a certain way. And so if you are being trustworthy or you are being relating to people in kind and maybe enthusiastic ways, there's a it's hard to describe it, but you're creating like a safety and you're creating like an energy where you're allowing people to be who they are. And so it's a long term, but they got to watch you. But it's really more about how you make them feel.
Michael, we talk about his talent, right? But the thing that strikes me is his winning mentality. I'm not sure there's ever been an athlete that has a greater will to win, and it's very special. How did you help him sharpen that, and how much did that strike you when you met him?
Well, it was very obvious. I would say my relationship with Michael was probably more about helping him understand why he could do what he could do, so that he could actually raise his game, go to the next level. So it wasn't like I don't do anything to anybody. I work with a lot of NBA teams, NHL teams, NFL teams, just performers, and I never scored one basket or one goal. Never. But what I do is help them figure out, help them find themselves. Is pretty much what it is. And so by being able to understand who you are, then you're able to uh, evolve, develop it. So in the old days, I don't say this too much now, but what I do is help people. The idea is to know yourself so you can be yourself, so you can express yourself, so you can share yourself. So that self is inside you. And my job is to help people discover that and share it with the rest of us. And so it's the process. Like you say, how do you do it? It's just meeting people where they are and helping them get what they want to get.
I think everybody has self-doubt, right? Even the very best. And it's noise, but the best are able to overcome that. How do you help them do that?
Well, doubt is a proximate cause of wisdom. So what does that mean, George? It means you're not supposed to get rid of doubt. The doubt is telling you you don't know enough. and you need to investigate, and you need to explore and ask questions. But doubt is, it's how you, but the elite, especially like him, when he looks at something like that, he doesn't see danger, he sees an opportunity. So it's like, instead of being a roadblock, it's a stepping stone. And so he embraces it, and it's telling him he needs to understand what's going on. And so the doubt is something that's embraced. I would say everything's embraced, not just the doubt, the fear, doubt, insecurity, the love, the joy, the compassion. Some of us are afraid of our greatness. I'd say most of us are more afraid of our greatness, afraid of freedom. And you say, well, why would they do that? Well, if we go back to 1846, there was a philosopher by the name of Soren Kierkegaard. And he talked about this idea that if you take a coin, one side of the coin, the heads, is freedom. The other side of the coin is uncertainty and anxiety. They come together. So I would say we spend most of our time between boredom and anxiety. So when you have anxiety, that's usually, now we're talking about getting into flow and quantum physics and all that, but it's when your skills are low, but your challenges are high. You have anxiety. And then if you have too much skill and not enough challenge, you get bored. And so that's pretty much how we live. It's like, if you're bored, that means you're not interested. That means you got to challenge yourself. You got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to actually have a purpose, or have something that a passion about something. And so when we talk about what makes him the way he is, we all have that capacity to be like he is, but we are different. We may not express ourselves the same way that he does, because his talents are different than ours. But we all have a certain level of talent. We all have a way of, our job is to be our best self, not to compare ourselves with somebody else. And so I would say for him, it's just being authentic and helping them. I mean, who doesn't want somebody to help them be who they are? Unless they unless they don't unless they're dealing with what Kierkegaard called the alarming possibility of being able. So that's what it is. And people think, oh, you're good, you don't have anxiety. Anxiety is everywhere. You don't get rid of it, it's there. But whether it's how you relate to it, just like love, all of these other emotions and qualities of mind, they're there. But the question is not that you're experiencing them. The question is, how are you relating to them in a way where you can still be who you are?
We hear the expression flow state, and I feel the greats are able to achieve that state more often than anybody else. Why do you think
Well,
that is?
I wouldn't believe that. I don't think that. I spend a lot of time in flow. A lot of people have flow experiences, but they don't know what it is, and they may not be in the public sphere to express it and share it. But if they don't know what it is, then the chances of them being able to access it and share it are probably limited. So that's the thing. But I know what you're talking about, being in flow, being in the zone. And so there's different qualities, and there's a whole flow genome project, and there's a book called The Art of the Impossible. But Stephen Kotler has written a lot of books around flow, and Chick Sent Me High talked about flow, and it's there's flow triggers that help us get flow. And I would say mindfulness and the process that I'm engaged in, I engage people in, make you flow ready, make you able to access flow, because you can't access flow unless you're in the moment, and unless you're clear about what your goals are, and you're getting the feedback, and you're making immediate adjustments in real time. And they call it the challenge skills sweet spot, and that's what I was talking about. You got to be challenged, and if you're not out of your comfort zone, you have no shot at getting in the flow zone. That's why I said that we have to be able to embrace the uncertainty, the anxiety, and by embracing it, saying yes to it, and creating space, and then we make choices on it, and these little, I guess these little, like chunking. And what happens is, when you get into it and you're in it and you're in the moment, and the interesting thing, one of the characteristics of being in flow is you're not there. There's no self-consciousness. You actually become one with your activity. So there's no sense of I, me, and mine. You go beyond that. And so you're
These
just being.
athletes, these athletes you've worked with has given us so much joy over the years. What's your abiding memory of Kobe that makes you smile?
there's a lot of things. I had a really close relationship with Kobe, and obviously it was private, so most people don't know that. But and in 2015, and I was here in my house working on my book, The Mindful Athlete, and I get a call, and I answer the phone and say, "Hello, Mumph, it's Kobe. How you doing? Hey, I want you to come out here and hang with me for a little bit, and help me uh, teach the lead of the elite." And so I went out and I spent a lot of time, several days with him. We were talking, and I was really profoundly moved by the fact that he had created another life. He was ending his NBA career, but he was already moving and planning how he was going to do it. So I went and I saw his setup, and he had all of these guys doing tech. That's where he got that the Golden Globe, where the Oscar for that. He was way ahead of everyone else, and I there were things that we talked about, and he remembered every single thing I gave him. I taught him, um, but it was just fascinating to see him just evolve and continue to, beyond basketball. He just had a brilliant mind, and just a lot of fun. I was there when he was coming out, when he was started uh, hitting his groove. So it was just the idea, the authenticity and the compassion and the tenacity to get better. Because I would say, unlike some of the other, like Michael and some of these other folks, he didn't have the raw ability that they had, but he had that mentality of just doing whatever it took to get better and outwork everybody and to really enjoy the journey. I mean, all of it he loved. The 1,300 made threes every day, working on a 3-point shot, or after he played in his first playoff game and had 3 air balls, going back home, calling the custodian. Only Kobe would know the custodian's number. I'm just saying, and call him and have him open up the gym and shoot for 8 hours. And who else takes a helicopter? Because that's what happened. I'm in Newport Beach with him, and he says, well, I want you to go to the game with me tonight because I like keeping a low key. And I said, okay. And he said, a limo's going to come by and pick you up around such and such a time and take you to the airport. I said, well, why are we going to the airport? He says, we're going to take the helicopter. And I'm saying, how long have you been taking the helicopter? And he told me for no years. I said, man, like who does that? Who does that? He takes a helicopter and we get in the helicopter and it's just me and him, no security and the 2 helicopter pilots. And we fly into LA and we land on a building, and then we get out of the building, go downstairs. There's a limo and takes us to the Staples Center. That's the only picture he and I have, or any of my guys that I have in public, because I'm walking, and then one of the media guys just took a picture of us and put it on Instagram. But that was it. It was all of these things that I didn't know. I didn't realize how much of what I taught him he absorbed. He's got like a photographic memory. He remembered everything. And I taught him, and one of the big lessons I taught him, and I usually don't talk to the players during the game. This is in 2000, my first year that I was working with him, and Phil was working with, when Phil took over, and it's before a game, and he's warming up, and every time he's warming up, I talked about right effort. It was like he was trying to score 35 points on each shot, and I just said, "Hey, Kobe, the best way to score is not to try to score." So I said to him, and he had 16 points in the first quarter. Try not to score. So that was it. And I said, "Do you remember that?" He said, "Yeah, I remember that. And I remember this, that, and the other thing." And so we had a good time, because that's very rare that I could have that kind of time with him, because in the context of the team, especially during the season when I was there working with them a lot, there's so many other people coming and going and doing things. But I had the opportunity of just me and him in a helicopter, and driving in a limo. And, I went to the game and, hung out, and I hadn't been there in, like, I don't know, number of years, but it was pretty interesting. But just having that relationship with young folks when they're young. He wasn't even 20 when I met him, and seeing him coming out, seeing him evolve. and knowing that I had an impact on him, but I didn't do anything. All I did was help him be who he was. And that's what I said. Same thing with MJ. And of course, I room with Dr. J, so I seen him coming out. So I've had a very privileged existence, but not because I'm entitled, but it was just my path, my life just took me that way. And when I started overcoming my difficulties and being myself, I find myself in these amazing places with these amazing people, but I'm not really doing anything special other than just being who I am and trying to help as many people as I can.
MJ's competitive nature, when he says, and I took that personally. I mean, I love that. It's one of my favorite moments in any sports documentary. Is that something, I mean, that's unique, right? His competitiveness. And is it not everybody has that? Do you feel people can adopt that?
Yeah, there's a certain level of it. So you got to look at his history. So when I first started working with the Bulls in 1993, and he was kind of there at the beginning, but then he went and wasn't there for 18 months. Then he came back, and then we were hanging out, and then 95, but 96, 97, 98 won 3 NBA championships. And when I watched him, I saw somebody who was trying to make the team. I mean, practice is, you think the games or something, practice is way more intense than the games. Because everything he did, as a matter of fact, when he came back and they came to Boston, and when they come to Boston, I would always meet with the team, and we do, they do film and whatnot. Then the coaches would leave, and I just do some mental training with the team, and I was asking him to do some things, and MJ he had something going on with his finger, so he had the stem on, and we're doing I think we're doing sun salutations or some kind of mind body exercise. And I said, MJ, you don't have to do it. You got the thing. He said, no, I'll do it. And he just did it. And I could tell you, it was funny because when he came, he didn't know I was doing this stuff with the team. And you look around, everybody's closing their eyes and doing things, and he's looking at me and whatever. Then he gets it. But the thing about him is he was open. He's always looking for the edge, but it's really more about his intelligence and his humility. I would say him and Kobe are probably two of my best students in terms of working with stuff, and that says a lot. And people say, well, what do you make of that? I said, well, part of it is, are they great um, because they're good students? Are they good students because they're great? And so you can go either way with that. But I think to me, it's all about being humble and hungry. I think that you have to have a desire. And I think MJ, when he got cut from his high school basketball team, that made him who he is. Because he did, well, obviously he had the capacity, but he chose to say, I'm never going to get cut again. And no one's going to outwork me. And you've seen that as, at the Hall of Fame. He said, dude, you made a mistake. He made sure he was in the audience and he told that. But what he didn't tell them, people don't know, is that when he got cut, one of the coaches or somebody would come and pick him up every morning at 5 o'clock, and they would do workout or just work. Get just work on this game. He grew 4 inches, but the main thing was his mentality. And when I saw him, I'm saying to you that he looked like somebody was trying to make the team. And that was his, no matter what he was doing, he was going to move that dial. And so having somebody like me come along and saying, hey, yeah, you could do that, and here's some things you might consider that's going to help you. So can you imagine going to somebody at his level and say, hey, man, there's another level, and I can help you get there? And I didn't have to ask him if he was interested because that's what he was doing. I was just saying, let me help you.
I love that. That's fantastic. For you in the modern era, who has the strongest mentality, the strongest mind that stands out to you?
Um, I'm not. I can only speak to the people I work with and the people I know, and just seeing how people are evolving and whatnot. And I live in outside of Boston, So Tom Brady, definitely. But growing up, I watched Bill Russell and the Celtics when they won 8 in a row, and different people. Muhammad Ali. I don't look at it as personalities as much as I look at the principles or the qualities of people. So not everybody may have the same thing, but you can actually see it in events or in situations where people connected at something and do something special. That's why we love the Olympics and we love competition, because people show us that it's possible to go beyond what we think it is, and it doesn't have to just be an athletic. It could be anything. It could be, you interacting. I don't know if you have any kids or interacting with somebody. It could be all of that, but I don't really measure people that way. I usually focus on their behavior. So oftentimes I don't watch sporting events as much as I used to, but I watch the post games, because I can understand a lot just for how people are seeing things and what they're talking about and what they're doing. And so um and it's on all domains. So I'm not looking and saying I don't compare like he's the best, who's the best. I'm probably more looking at, is that person really um going beyond uh, what we expect from them? In other words, are they are they expressing themselves honestly? Are they embracing their greatness, finding the flow and discovering success? So it's not like, because every situation is different. We have this idea that content is the same. Content is one thing. The context is very important. So it's when somebody, maybe they don't do anything, and then they go to the Olympics, or they have one moment, and they show up in a way that they never showed up before. Like Bob Beamon, when he broke the record, he broke it by, when he jumped, he broke it by feet. I mean, it was like, it's like that happens, something like that happens. And the American figure skater, and she's coming overcoming adversity and talking about just loving the just loving competing, the whole thing, the training and everything, loving the moment. And that's the secret. That's the secret to pure performance, is this moment, just fully embracing yourself, engaging yourself, expressing yourself fully and creatively and authentically in the moment. So it's not the activity, it's our embrace of the present moment and being able to be fully present and fully engaged.
It applies to all facets of life,
That's what
guys.
I'm saying. But we don't, but here's the challenge is, when we talk about athletics and whatnot, we have a beginning, middle, and end. But in life, it's a marathon. A dude just won a marathon here in Boston. He broke his record in 3 minutes. He did the 26.2 miles in two 2 minutes and 2 hours and 1 minute and some change. And it was
Like
cool.
we
And I
said,
knew, I said, oh man, somebody could break that, because I used to run cross country in high school. And it's like the weather was cold, and it's like, ooh, it's like there's something gonna happen here.
like we said at the start, you've had a beautiful life. You're still living it. You're still building it. You're still riding it,
Oh
George.
yeah, I'm not man. Listen, I'm still. The interesting thing about this ride, the interesting of what I'm offering and talking about, is this joyful journey of discovery, and what I've discovered overcoming substance abuse and chronic pain and whatnot. It's like the adversity, and I think it was Nietzsche that said he wishes all of his friends and relatives have difficulty, because it's what Hans Selye said. He's the guy that talked about the stress of life. He said that it's when we have these struggles that our latent abilities express themselves. So it's kind of like that old myth, if you watch the Twilight series and vampire movies, and it's like the more vampires in the neighborhood, the more people, the native people turn into werewolves. You know, it's like, you have more werewolves when you have more vampires in it. So it's like when you have more threat and when you have more adversity, it's going to bring more people, going to be able to express themselves honestly even more to meet that challenge.
100%. I did not see a Twilight reference coming from you, George, but this has been
Yeah.
fantastic, fascinating. Guys, if you want to find out more, go get the books. Thank you for everything that you've done. and that you continue to do. I love sport. I love speaking to people, and it lights us up.
Let me ask you. So you're a cricket or rugby fan, or both?
I'm a football fan and martial arts.
Okay, cool. Okay, I roll with that. That's good. That's good. When
Yeah,
you say football, are you talking about American football or soccer?
soccer.
Soccer,
Believe
right?
it. Yeah. I love
Yeah,
all
okay.
sport.
I knew that, but I had to ask you because a lot of people, because I've worked in the Premier League, and
Oh wow.
so I knew that we call it football, not soccer.
That's like the Brazilian way. I'm a Thierry Henry guy.